All right, so as we have moved to remote learning, can you guys maybe give me an example of something that you are doing a little bit differently that you were either forced into doing because of the remote learning, or were willing to try something new based on the format of that? Megan, why don't you go ahead and get us started with that?
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen then, and I'm gonna start by showing you our math menu that we provide the kids. Hopefully this works. So this is what it looks like. They get a menu of things that they can try. Right now we're focusing on measurement, which is a completely new topic for them. And they get one thing that has to relate to measurement, and then they get some word problems. So this is something completely new for us. We started using the CGI math instruction. It's the cognitively guided instruction approach. It's not really a program, it's more just an approach to how you teach things. And so there are different levels of math problems and different types of math problems. So these are the different CGI problem types. So result unknown, change unknown, start unknown. And then at the bottom, you can see where the different grade levels have to master each type. The cool thing about this is we've kind of learned that with some of our higher level math kids, we can really differentiate for them, and they're doing multiplication type problems without really realizing they're doing multiplication. And so we use the kids' names in the problems, so they really like that. It kind of ties them in and gets them a little more engaged. This is an example of a student's work. It looks very different. It's just her drawing a picture and including a number sentence. So as you can see, the 3 + 3 + 3 was a problem they were given that was multiplication. So 3 sets of 3 cookies, how many cookies were given in all? So it's pretty impressive to see the kindergartners doing that kind of work, because it's not something we typically would have given them in the classroom per se. So I've really enjoyed getting to know this CGI and doing a little bit more of it. And then oftentimes they'll record themselves too, saying how they solved the problem, so we get to hear kind of what their mathematical thinking was. And then I had one other, let's see if I can get to it. New share. This is another student. We were talking about measurement. He went out in his backyard and got a bunch of bamboo sticks and put them in order from smallest to largest. So he really enjoyed doing that, just getting outside in your backyard and doing math with what you have. So they really enjoyed some of those activities.
That's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, Susie, how about you? What's happened a little bit differently for you this time around?
So I'm going to try to go back and do this. So I'm going to be, am I sharing this now or not yet?
Not yet.
Share. Okay.
There you
go. Okay, so what we found in the middle school is a little different. In 8th grade, of course, I'm preparing the kids to go into high school. And so we want to keep what they're doing safe, familiar, and routine, but also trying to reach them innovatively and have them be successful. So what I found is that the technology part is the most important. So if I go to this, in the beginning, each of our classes, and I'm sure the lower school and the upper school do this, I have my kids show their faces. So I make sure everybody's online and I can see their faces. And that's the main thing that I do to try to say, all right, we're still in class, we're in this together. And the second part of this that I found that's really been important is to remind them that, yes, you're in 8th grade and I'm getting ready for you for upper school mathematics. So no matter what we're doing online or not, you are still going to be ready for next year. Now, how we do that is a little bit differently. So if you can see that this is a typical homework assignment, but now I've always attached a video to it. And the video is of me teaching the lesson. In case the kids miss the lesson, I'm not there, they can do it. Now what happens if something happens and they don't get the lesson, or they haven't been there, or the video is still misunderstanding, they can email me or text me, and immediately now I use Microsoft Teams and I go right in and I call them. So I have a lot of interactions with the students. Now, what this looks like is kind of like a little video conference. So if I want to talk to a group of kids, I have a speed dial now with middle school students. And so I speed dial them and we get in a group conference call and we can talk about either the topic or the lesson. And they have now picked this up, so they are calling each other on Teams. And I have a girl in the UK, Charlotte, who stylus ran out of a battery. So she couldn't write anything, so she got her best friend Rana in the class, and they are doing now Zoom meetings to teach each other the math that they missed in case they missed class. So the kids are doing meetings. It's great. Now, we also do, I also do a budget challenge with the students, and that's an online game that they've been doing a lot. And so what I did was the other day, I got this group together to kind of explain what we're doing.
So I'm going to do a little interview with them, and so they can tell you a little bit about what the budget challenge was while they were in their 8th grade class. So welcome to our interview on budget challenge, and I'd like to have you to introduce yourself. We'll start with Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Rainey, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Nick Shaw, and I'm in 7th grade.
I'm Rana Arabi, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Parker Corbin, and I'm in 8th grade.
All right, Nick, why don't you tell us how we started this game?
Okay, during this online time, the 8th grade was playing the budget challenge game simulation in math. This is a 10-week game that just ended on May 1st. Every student playing the game gets the same scenario. You have graduated from college and have a job making $41,000 a year. You have to make choices at the beginning of the game about financial things, just like we would after we get out of college as adults.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
Okay, so Emma, tell us about what the choices were that you had to make.
Some of the choices are the type of checking account you want to set up, whether
Right,
to
so
get
I'm
overdraft protection or not, apartment choices, cell phone choices, gas and electricity billing or not, and the percentage to save in your 401k savings for retirement, getting a loan from a bank or a credit union, and finally car insurance, high deductible or low deductible.
Okay, so anyway, that's kind of like a sample of the things that we do, and the kids do this all the time though. If they're having trouble with a math problem, they will call each other and do these little video conferences. Brady, I know, does small video conferences during his class time where the kids can work together. And for the middle school, I think the highlight is on using technology in collaboration with each other. The other day, I had a student who emailed me and said, my Wi-Fi was down, I don't understand this. Immediately, I called him on Zoom and we had a 10-minute meeting and I explained the material and he was good. So it's kind of like instant tutoring. You know how you all have office hours and your kids come in and ask you questions? Well, now we have instant Zoom hours, team hours, where they team us and we are actually doing a lot of more one-on-one than we've ever done before. So that's kind of, I feel like what the main thing is focused on keeping the routine and making sure that the kids have access to us and to each other, and they really do help each other all the time. Okay, so now I'm going to undo this, stop sharing, okay? There we go.
All right, Lauren, how about pre-calc or comp sci? What's going on in that world?
Yeah, actually, so I might start with Honors Algebra 2 and share some of the stuff that they've worked on. So, all right. So one of the things that I did a little differently in Honors Algebra 2, at least when we started to try to get kind of used to this remote learning format, was I actually had them complete this Desmos art contest. So they use the online calculator Desmos and applied different equations, looked at different functions, and had to transform them in order to make different images. So these are some pictures that the students made. Nice country day spirit there. But all these pictures were used just on transforming different functions that we have learned throughout this entire year. So it was a little different, a little more creative, and kind of a fun way to get started and get used to this format. And the students came up with some really cool designs. So this is only a small selection of what they were able to put together, but I was really impressed with what they came up with. And I think it helped kind of enhance their understanding on especially the transformations, because I know that's something that a lot of my students struggled with at the beginning of the year. And getting to really see and apply those different techniques, I think has helped kind of enhance their understanding of this topic. So that was one thing that I did in Honors Algebra 2. That was a little different. Let's see if I can just show my Honors PreCalc. So something that we're doing a little differently in Honors PreCalc, what I would say would be our assessment style. So this is something that Mrs. Back and I talked about and came up with. So we've been doing group check-ins, is what we've called them, to assess the student understanding of the different topics that we've covered. So kind of how we've modified a typical assessment is we actually created 3 different types of kind of level of difficulty for the problem. So we call them mild, medium, and spicy. And so for these different check-ins, the students are required to complete the mild problems. So mild problems are things that I expect all of these Honors PreCalc students to be able to understand, things that they're going to need and have to use in AP Calc, AB, or BC. So we have a selection of mild problems, and then the medium problems and spicy problems are optional. So there are problems that if a student is going to be in AP Calc BC next year, then I would expect them to do, but it also allows a little more differentiation. And so students that want that challenge or need that challenge are able to tackle some of these more difficult problems. And students that, as long as they're able to complete the mild, then they're in good shape for kind of completing this year. So that's something that we've done a little differently. Something that we were planning on using, but has been really valuable this quarter in particular, using this remote learning style, has been playing the calculus game Variant Limits. I won't show that on my screen because it takes a lot of bandwidth, but it is a video game where students have different puzzles that they will solve, applying different calculus topics. So looking at limits and continuity specifically. But it's been a nice thing that students will often have students kind of watch a screencast, or we'll have a live check-in, go over homework problems. And then any time that's left in the bell, students are playing the game. And it's cloud-based, so I can kind of track their progress. I've had students that have gotten stuck and they will share their screen. They'll talk to other students. I've had a couple that have said they were stuck on a puzzle, so they FaceTimed a friend and we're showing them their screen to help them get through it. But that's been something that I think has been really valuable and a kind of a fun way to work through this 4th quarter. Now, in AP Computer Science, we're reviewing for the AP Computer Science exam, which is next Friday, so coming up. And one of the things that I've done in that class was have students create a game. So let me see if I can share a demo really quick. So I think you should be able to see a tic-tac-toe game. So this is a demo that I created to show the students. They're still working on this game. It's due actually tomorrow. But it's a couple, considering it's a tic-tac-toe game and you think it's pretty straightforward, it's a couple hundred lines of code, and it requires applying all the topics that we have talked about this year in AP Computer Science. So looking at different methods and control structures, creating objects. So even though it's a pretty basic game from a player standpoint, there's a lot that goes into it and a lot of different techniques the students have to apply. So it's been a little more fun and creative way to start reviewing for the AP exam, and students have done different games. There's some that are creating a snake game, some doing a battleship. So it's kind of been on top of our standard review, working through AP practice problems. But for this game, again, it's not super challenging. It's playing against a relatively smart computer, not super smart, but it tries. So I tell it different locations that I want to put my X symbol, and then the computer will place its O symbol, and hopefully I can win this one. And congratulations, I win. So basic game, lots of work to get it set up. So that's what we're kind of doing to help review for the AP exam in AP Computer Science.
This reminds me of, what was that movie called? War Games?
Yeah.
Run through the tic-tac-toe hundreds of thousands of times, whatever, to eventually show that it's always a tie. So, well, great. Thank you so much. Actually, one last question. If you can summarize very, very briefly, one thing that has been a challenge, like specifically, whether it's classroom or whether it's just kind of math specific, what have you found to be challenging that you're working on, or maybe is a struggle? You know, one of the things we emphasize in the math department in general is that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to screw up, it's going to be hard. So I think it's important for students to know that even as math teachers, we run into those challenges as well. Where's something that you have struggled with in this process that maybe you haven't found a solution to yet, or maybe you have, but that you're kind of going through? Megan, what would you say is something for you that's been tricky?
I think at first for kindergarten, it was mostly that we were having trouble tracking the kids' progress. We can see a lot on Seesaw, and we can see a lot on IXL. The kids have been using that. But I think it's hard to know what the kids are doing by themselves and how much parents are giving them help or input. So it's kind of hard to know exactly what the kids are learning. I just think some students, I've been surprised at how well they've done, and hopefully they really are doing that well, but it makes me wonder how much their parents are helping them, because they're not teachers, and they don't know the process of letting the kids take the time to figure it out, and that it is okay to get it wrong, and we learn from those mistakes. So I think that's been the most challenging thing for us.
Susie, how about for you?
Well, I think in the middle school, when we have discussions as faculty, there are two things that are highlighted. First of all, some kids are engaging in this really well and others are not. And for us to judge, it's really hard to do. So you have to do a lot of check-in, more than normally. That's number one. And the second thing is, now when I give quizzes or assessments or have anything to do, I make it open book and open notes. So ironically, some of the kids who struggle in math now are doing really well, because they don't have to have everything committed to memory, and they can look up everything, and they're finding this to be really valuable. Some of the other ones who just want to do it really quickly and don't look at the notes, then they're struggling a little bit more. So those kind of things I have to keep reminding them, remember, this is open book, open notes, you get to get help. So it's been a little different, but in some ways it's been fun.
Lauren, how about you?
I think, kind of speaking to what Megan said about the challenge for assessments, for me, the Desmos art project was a good way to kind of assess the students' understanding of transformation of functions, because it was open-ended and a little more creative. But a lot of the problems have one right answer. So it is challenging to create an assessment where I feel confident that I am really assessing the students' understanding. Because of this format for learning, things are open note, open book, working in groups a lot, which I think some students have found very helpful and is a useful tool for them to use. But for me to actually feel like I know each individual student, kind of where they're at and their own individual understanding, that's been a challenge, and trying to figure out how to address that. And that's something I'm still trying to work on. So I'm trying to, again, just embrace the fact that they're going to have their notes, they're going to be able to talk to their friends, but still it's always kind of in the back of my mind of wondering, how much are they really getting from this?
Yeah. I found that, I think for me, the biggest challenge, and I think what you just said kind of summarizes how much are they getting from it, is not being able to see them in class. In class, when you when you ask a question, or you're talking about a topic, you can see the kids that really get it, and they're, they're nodding or they're doing whatever, and you can see the blank stares or like, I have no clue what you're doing right now. And it was really hard. That the first week and a half where I was trying to teach, I found that I was doing a lot of the talking, and because in our team's meetings, we can only see 4 students at a time at that point. I couldn't actually see everyone. So what I started doing was I opened up my online calculator, and I would project it to them, and I randomly assigned each kid a number, and I would pick on them randomly, and I would not pick on, but I would choose them randomly to answer questions. And what was interesting was they got very, very nervous at the very beginning, because all of a sudden I'm asking a question, and then I would pick a number. I'm like, okay, so-and-so number 7 was picked, it's you. But what I found is, as a class, they're starting to see, oh, wait a minute, that person was stuck a little bit, and that person was stuck a little bit. And they see that there are very few students that get it very, very, very quickly. I've also learned that I pick their number first to let them know it's coming, and then I ask the question. Even something as simple as that, where instead of asking the question first and then calling on the student, I call on the student first. I say, good morning, how are things going? You with us? Yep. Okay. So here's a topic, just to kind of get them ready for it. Those are the little details that I never would have thought about, in this form, but you do have to take into account, because you're not seeing them face to face, and being able to interpret, how well are they really grasping the material or understanding it. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this today. I'm going to go ahead and